Thank you everybody for joining us today. We're coming up on our last Fireside chat. I'm particularly excited about this one. I have Litt here, music director from KCRW, current host of Morning Becomes Eclectic. We're having a fireside chat, and you'll see that Ann is one of the only people who is got it down enough to actually deliver on that. The name of our topic today, it's creating human connection at a distance, lessons learned from a career in radio. Ann Litt has spent her entire career building community through the airwaves, and we'll discuss how radio is serving those needs during COVID, and perhaps how some people who are just getting into broadcasting can get some lessons learned and maybe improve their game. This is all new for me, so Ann, I'm personally looking forward to a lot of advice from you about how to do it right. Before we get started, I just want to say thank you for everyone who's helped put this together. A lot of people have volunteered time to pull this off. We started this idea 3 weeks ago. Here we are. We've had a lot of people attend, a lot of good conversations, a lot of information. We're looking forward to keeping this conversation going. When we started, we decided to do this with free registration. Even though one of our original intentions was to raise some money for some organizations who need help right now. And you're super good at this, so I'm going to expect notes afterwards. There are a lot of people who have been either laid off or furloughed, who need some assistance. They're young people looking for an opportunity. So the organizations that we've chosen to direct donations towards, it's the World Central Kitchen, which is distributing food across the United States, Film to Future, which is educating our youth here in Los Angeles and providing access to the entertainment industry, both through education as well as careers. And last but not least, Music Cares, which has been helping support people in need in the music business for many years. And I've had a lot of friends who benefited from their programs. You saved money on the registration, the travel, the drinks, and all that. So if you do happen to be in a position to help others, that's really what we're trying to accomplish here today. If you can go to our website and consider making a donation of any size to one of those organizations, it'd be much appreciated. Thank you all for engaging with us today. And I'm going to start with a little bit about your background. You're somebody who is working at their dream job, and you've been there for so long. I think in this moment where so many people have lost their jobs or looking to figure out what the new direction is, especially people in the live entertainment business, you are in a place where you're on the front lines of communications and building community and maintaining that community through KCRW. It's not your first time going through a challenging time and being a voice on the air and trying to help people understand what to deal with and also how to cope with it through music. If you're not familiar with Ann Litt, she's been a voice on KCRW for a long time, as a host and DJ, and also taking the show on the road to South by Southwest and Sundance. And she's interviewed literally all the coolest musicians possible. Currently doing that on Morning Becomes Eclectic, Oscar winning. She did the soundtrack, Grammy nominated soundtrack for the Oscar winning film Little Miss Sunshine. Somebody's prompting me. She's a radio icon. I think I can agree with that from the chat. Music campaigns associated with advertising for Apple, Volkswagen. And the thing that really brought us close together is Ann's also on the board of the Pavlov Foundation, an organization that helps provide arts programs for kids with cancer, photography to be specific. And also we fund research. I actually invited Ann to join me on the board there when I was chairman. So we have gotten to know each other a lot through acting in service of other people. And it was really with that in mind when I reached out to Ann as we were putting the conference together. I thought, who would really be able to share what it's like to talk to people and build connections at a distance. As we experience the regulations right now, Howard, I think you just joined us.
Yeah. Actually, Howard, I shared my link with my husband. You need to sign off.
Okay.
Hey, Howard.
I told Howard to watch, but I sent him the wrong link.
That's perfect. We all got to meet Litt's husband. So that's a special treat. That's never happened on KCRW, live here on the air.
That's right.
You know, Anne, I think part of what we're dealing with, right, is loss. Everyone has lost their freedom to gather in person. We've lost our ability to come together for concerts and music and restaurants and everything. And so there's this really shared emotion in the entire world, also here in Los Angeles. And, you know, I'm just curious right now, you know, what's your approach to Morning Becomes Eclectic, and how are you feeling, and what's driving your conversations?
It's really, well, first of all, hi, and thank you for having me. This is super fun, and I'm glad I scored on the fire. I just would like to point that out. Gosh, well, first of all, I want to tell you all that we have just moved Morning Becomes Eclectic to the basement of my house, and I'm actually sitting in the studio. I haven't shown anybody this yet, but this is actually the KCRW Morning Becomes Eclectic studio right here. And that's been a very different feeling as well. But to answer your question, the thing I love about radio and broadcasting that I've always loved is it's about having a conversation with a friend. And somehow I feel like over the last 2 months, that friendship has become more intimate, and it's become even more important and sustaining. And I can't imagine. I mean, I sort of, in a weird way, have survivor's guilt because I'm getting to get out there and communicate and talk to people. I've never been this long in my life without seeing live music since I've been able to see live music. But look, it's weird. It's totally weird. So I was broadcasting from KCRW, and we have a rotation, a blue team and a red team, because we're trying to keep CDC guidelines in place and have as few people in the building as possible. So I was broadcasting from there up until last week, so for 6 or 7 weeks. And it was so lonely, to be in this amazing facility. It was just lonely, and I felt like I just needed to talk and play music for you.
It's crazy, right? Because we're all getting into each other's basements and corners of our houses. And really having these really personal conversations from spaces that are usually private. And I'm just curious, like, what you just completed a fundraising drive for KCRW, and it sounded like it went pretty well, and you guys hit your goals early. One of the things that I'm seeing is people really coming and answering a call to action, and people being so willing to help. And how was that for you on the station?
Well, it was weird because we actually finish at midnight tonight, kcrw.com/give, or any of the great organizations, Music Cares, and all those. Do you put those up on the screen so everybody can?
We can't put them up on the screen. I'm not that technologically advanced, but they are on the website, and the links go directly through.
Yeah, I was really nervous going into it because I feel strange asking people for money when people, to keep KCRW operating. But the way we approached it was just kind of one-to-one and personal. Like, if you can't do it right now, take a pass, please. We'll catch up with you later. If you are doing okay, if you do have a job and you feel like you can help support for somebody who can't, that would be awesome. But I think this drive has felt very different to me. I mean, they all feel personal to me, but this one has felt even more deeply personal. Like, I find myself sometimes talking about stuff like that on the air and feeling like I'm about to burst into tears because it's so intense and so real, and talking to people who, all of the DJs at KCRW make their living for the most part as DJs, and that's not happening right now. So I find it just so heart-wrenching this time. I don't know if it was easier to fundraise, and I hate even saying fundraise because it seems so, but I really like to just buy everybody dinner, but it's been an intense couple of weeks. And because people really stepped up, we actually were ending it sooner. We thought we were going to go through the end of May.
Well, I think, in other countries, what we've seen, I've referred to the UK a couple of times today. And by the way, I feel very much like this is what a day in the life of Litt is like, because I've interviewed people in Puerto Rico today, people in Ireland,
Yeah.
people from New York and LA. And it's like I've been all over the place in conversations and really connecting with people beyond what I would ordinarily do in a day.
Yeah.
But in the UK in particular, when the government asked people to volunteer around the NHS and around the elderly people in their communities, it was oversubscribed, right? I mean, they were looking for a couple 100,000 volunteers, and they doubled that or tripled that number. And we haven't really had a similar call to action for volunteerism in this country from a federal or state level. But we're seeing.
Well, it's being very local right now. I mean, it's sort of like, we have a bunch of fruit trees in our yard, and we went out 2 weekends ago and pulled every single avocado, grapefruit, lemon, whatever, and took them to the North Hollywood Interfaith Food Pantry. I think people are just, people want to do something. And maybe that's why the fundraiser at KCRW has gone well, because, one of our big partners is the Los Angeles Regional Food Bank. And so, we've been supporting them through that too. I don't know. I just feel this incredible need to help somebody and do something. And, what can I do? And I wish we had been called out more on a national level, but I think everybody else I know is just motivating. I mean, I've talked to people who are, I have a friend who has a clothing business, and now she's making face masks for doctors. And, there's a lot of people want to pitch in.
It seems like the initial sort of freeze and fear around the virus and what am I doing, and am I what's safe to do, now that we have some level of understanding around that, there is a very strong community driven drive to make a difference. And I feel like one of the things that motivated our conference was, what can we do? And the three of us basically said, okay, we can invite people in the business to have a conversation. And we knew these conversations were happening in private.
Yeah.
But we really wanted to make them public, because it's not just the handful of people on the telephone. We just finished a panel about canceling and postponing music festivals.
Yeah, I was watching that one, and
and we'd never that, that's happened in the past, but it hasn't happened on an industry-wide level, such that the conversation of a few people sharing their experience may benefit somebody who hasn't yet had to do it, but is going to do it soon. And we really just wanted to share this information, and it's been really fun to feel the community come together around it. Avril, who was, she's a promoter in Ireland of a festival called Body and Soul.
Yeah, I was listening to her.
Our conversation came together out of COVID, but we clearly should have talked before, because we're kindred spirits and share a lot about our career and experience, and could certainly benefit. But I feel like the communities are coming together, and I'm curious what, from your role at KCRW, as you're kind of getting ready in the morning, are you thinking about how you can bring the community together?
Yes, that's all I'm thinking about now.
Tell me all the secrets.
Well, I don't know if there are any secrets, but it, again, on a macro level, that's something. I mean, we are a community service of Santa Monica College. We're a community service, right? But those words have taken on such new meaning now, and now even music that you listen to takes on a different meaning than it did when you heard it 6 months ago. Even though it wasn't written for this time, it has a certain relevance and poignance now. I think the need to bring people together. We felt it before. There was 9/11. I was at the campus of Santa Monica College when we had this shooting there, which was pretty much the scariest thing I've ever been around, and the saddest thing I've ever had to witness. And that community coming together was much smaller. It wasn't, the whole city, but it was this intense need for people to get together and to, how do we express that? And how can, in the morning when I come down here, how can I figure out a way I just want people to feel better, and I want to give people hope, and you know, and sometimes hope might be like, listening to Minor Threat for an hour. You know what I mean?
Any chance to bring up the Discord catalog, I will totally accept.
Well, that's what I did on Friday. Last Friday was the end of this crazy week, and Henry Rollins, who's at KCRW, he created these shows for us, these 4-hour freeform shows, and I had this horrible week, and I went out and I listened to him play an entire Minor Threat album at like decibel levels I should not have been listening at, and it made me feel so good. So, how do we create community? It could be that, or it could be, playing, Eric Satie. It could go either way.
One of the things about, it's that emotion, right? And we're all going through it. There's frustration and anger, and that's certainly those are sentiments that Minor Threat is very familiar with. And as a DC kid myself, growing up seeing those bands, it's definitely, there are moments where it's like you just want to break stuff, you want to react. One of our prior panelists actually used to run the 930 Club, and she's now at Rand, Susan Marcos. Which is weird. And we connected when we were neighbors we discovered we were from DC. Then we talked about the 930 Club, realized she was running it when I was going there when I was 14. And now today she was on a panel about privacy and information and health. I mean, like, it's crazy, how the community.
Have we had this conversation? I grew up in Richmond, and I was probably at the 930 Club sneaking out when I was 14.
What was the first band you saw at the 930 Club? Do you remember?
Oh, I don't remember, but it was funny. I was talking about this to somebody else in Richmond. I remember sneaking out and going to see Guar.
It's pretty good. I went to Scream, which is, the band that Dave Grohl was the drummer in before Nirvana.
Yeah.
And then there was another band called Fetchin' Bones, and I forget who else.
I love Fetchin' Bones.
I was, there used to be this like a drink shelf around the corner of the old 930, and I sat up there because I was so afraid of the mosh pit that was happening, because I was not a large 14-year-old. So what, in terms of as you are picking music right now, how do you kind of program the morning? Like, what's going through your head, and what are you thinking about?
I think it's gone in waves. And the beauty, the ability we have to express ourselves is, a gift. But I think initially it was sort of like old R&B and like cozy comfort food, reggae albums that you grew up with kind of vibe. And then I thought to myself, well, you know what? Local artists are really struggling right now. And so then I went on I wanted to play only local bands, because, I just feel like we need to give these folks in our backyard as much support as we can right now. And I mean, it sort of goes back and forth, but I would argue that the albums and the music that were my safe space, and a lot of it comes from when you're a kid, and, it's sort of like, we had a thing we did the other night, like, what album saved my quarantine? And, my thing is, what album saved my teenage years? And I think there's a lot of that too. And then finding what people relate to, because I've been asking for a lot of requests, and I always play requests if I like them, but I've just been getting pages and pages and pages of Twitter requests for songs, and then just being able to play those songs and making somebody feel better, even whether it works in the set or not, is just super fun. I don't know. I just want to be out there with people since I can't see them.
So when you're kind of going back to local musicians, KCRW is it's sort of a hybrid, right? On the one hand, for those of us that live in Los Angeles, it's our local station. And if you're on the West Side, it's even more your neighborhood station. But you have such a global audience, when you're thinking about playing locally, how do you take it to the rest of the world?
But I think that's one of the things that I like, because I listen to Worldwide FM and Radio Nova and NTS and, all these. I listen to tons of these, radio stations, Dub Lab. I'm always listening to all these places. And one of the things I like about other radio stations is that it makes me feel like I'm in Paris. Or is this what people in the UK, is this their vibe? And I do think KCRW is very quintessentially Southern California in a way that WXPN in Philadelphia or WFUV in New York aren't. But they're quintessentially their space, right? So, creating community in Los Angeles, I think it's been interesting to see how many people have been donating during this fundraiser from, Germany, Switzerland, Ireland, Tokyo. We're hearing from people from all over the world. It's crazy. But I think we get a little slice of life. Like, I like playing local bands, A, because I want to support local music here in Los Angeles and Southern California, and B, because it's in everybody's DNA, right? It's where people are. I think, please, people, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that it's nice to have a flavor of what's going on here.
It's funny, the way you described that made me think that KCRW is sort of like the Beach Boys, the equivalent of the Beach Boys as a radio station, right? Like, the Beach Boys really, my first concert was the Beach Boys on the 4th of July at the Washington Monument, right? 700,000 people. I mentioned it earlier today, but it's just like, that's who I am. Like, I got into music festivals because of that. I got into music because of it. I moved to California from Washington, D.C., probably because of the Beach Boys and Three's Company. And I think part of like growing up watching Three's Company, I'm like, that looks great. Like, palm trees and the beach and everything. And then the Beach Boys singing about surfing. And so.
Well, I begged my parents because I was really into SST records. And, yes, the Beach Boys oddly were a thing. And also I discovered Los Lobos when I was in high school. And I was like, who is this band? Where are they from? And so I was obsessed with moving to Southern California. And I begged my parents to let me apply to college at UCLA because that was the only college I'd ever heard of in California. And they said, absolutely not. It's too expensive. Are you out of your mind? And but then I got here when I was about 25 and never left.
So when you made the move to California, what was that transition?
It was, I graduated from college where I worked at the college radio station. I had been interning at an independent label called Mammoth Records. And then I got a job there. And then I also had side jobs, bartending and stuff, but I also had other side jobs at other commercial radio stations. And so I was sort of doing all of that. And, but definitely in music. And I'd always wanted to come to California. And I, started dating a guy who said something about California. I was like, we should go there. And he's like, okay. And so I literally got in my car and I drove across country.
Amazing. And then what did you do when you first got to LA?
When I first got here, obviously I looked crazy for a job. I had a few connections in the music business because I had been doing publicity at Mammoth Records and radio promotion. And so I started hitting up people at different places. And actually my first job was being the assistant to two music supervisors, Paul Brusek and Evian Clean, if you guys are out there, who had this like independent music supervision company where we did shows like Baywatch and all of those kind of shows. And that's how I learned about music supervision. It was sort of, they were doing it before anybody else was sort of doing it as a thing. And I was their assistant. So
I understand that role. I answered the phones at KCRW at one point as an intern, and I also interned with Jason Bentley when he was doing. I guess he's still doing Metropolis, but before he was doing MBE.
You did?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
You have the dream job. At one point, I was like, I want that. I want to be on the air. So it's amazing and fun to be sitting here having the conversation.
Well, it's definitely, after doing college radio and doing commercial radio on the East Coast, I was excited to get into radio again, but I never thought it was possible. And then I by chance met Chris Doritas when he was the music director at KCRW. And when
you started as a DJ on KCRW, what were you doing?
Midnight to 3. I bounced around Friday, Saturdays, Sundays, different days of the week. I got fired once, but then I groveled my way back on, and I bored out the Santa Monica City Council meetings. And the reason that was a plum job was because if they ended early, you could DJ. So I did that for a while, and then an air shift opened up, and, it was just that kind of thing. So I just, was in heaven. I would do anything. I would sweep the floors over there.
That's amazing that I remember those. Are they still on the air? I remember those meetings. That's funny that was the plum job to get a couple of minutes.
Yeah. If I got sometimes I'd only get 10 minutes, but then sometimes they'd go into closed session. I get 3 hours.
And so right now, to kind of go back out a little bit, everyone is broadcasting now, right? I mean, we can't join together in person. So we're having events like this. We've got people listening and watching now, and we're chatting with them and incorporating what they're putting into the discussion. What do you think the role of radio is as broadcasting becomes so publicly available, and now with video, what's going to keep radio special?
I think it's more important than ever now. This is obviously our digital existence at KCRW. I think so here it is. In the old days, there was on-air broadcasts, and that was like what you wanted to do. And then the web team was over here, right? And at this point, it's all the same thing, right? It's on-air is broadcast. You go anywhere, and it's all one big mishmash. But what I think I've noticed in the last 2 months is that the actual live on-air broadcast has become essential again in a way that I don't think it was as much before. I think that the feedback I'm hearing and the way I'm acting in my life, I don't want to just hear some Spotify playlist algorithm on shuffle. I want to connect with somebody. I want to connect with, there's a reason they played that Bill Withers song, because Bill Withers died, and we could then play 3 hours of Bill Withers. I don't want to. I read some article in the New York Times that made me angry, because it was they were interviewing all these people who were talking about their algorithms. They worked at all the different algorithmic type music services, but they were talking about how their algorithms were human driven. I was like, what? What? How just put a human in? They're doing what are you talking about?
Like the railroads, right? Like the chase across the country.
Yeah. So I just think local radio in particular has a much, much bigger, and we're seeing it on the news side too, because we're talking about on the news and the culture side, what's going on, with restaurants, or what's going on with, on the food show, or what's going on in Hollywood on the Hollywood Business Show, and I think that, I don't know, local just seems so important, and radio actually seems really important.
Yeah, it's been, for us, this has been an experiment, right? Like, we've never done a conference like this before, and we're learning as we go.
I love this. I think what you're doing is great. I can't actually read the chat. I should get my glasses.
Well, I'm going to update you on a couple of things. One, which is pretty awesome, and speaking to the point that, this is bigger than Los Angeles. One of the people viewing said that our discussion about the 930 Club really made his day in the evening. And he's a subject matter specialist at the Library of Congress, which is pretty exciting. I love the DC California connection. It's like the definition of my existence. So
I'll say, when it relates to music, and maybe I'm just getting way too esoteric here, and this has nothing to do with COVID-19 at all, but the DC California thing, I do find that all the people I meet out here who've moved here from back there all had a similar sort of, I got to get there. How do I get there? How do I get into that music scene? And anyway.
And so you had mentioned kind of the importance of the music you were listening to in high school. And I think when I interviewed DJ Shadow a long time ago, I think he called it like soul music. It's like your soul music. These are the things that you have more time to spend listening to that music, and you don't have any other distractions, although now it's probably not the same, but like, you had the time to fall in love with these albums, and you could
and play them over and over and over again.
And you didn't have access to the entire music catalog in the world. So what were some of those records for you?
Well, it's funny, because somebody asked me this the other day. The records my parents were playing in the house obviously were my the first record album I ever got was John Denver's Greatest Hits. And my parents, Santa, gave it to me for Christmas when I was like in the 3rd grade. And I just thought that was the best thing that ever happened to me. And then, but my parents used to play, it was very Dave Brubeck, Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass. It was very Whipped Cream and Other Delights, Harry Belafonte. You know, they had this sort of very cocktaily album collection. And my dad was really into jazz, and so he played a lot of jazz in the house. And so those sounds really get me. If I hear Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass, I pretty much start crying, which is not the point of that music at all. But that really takes me back there. And then, you know, it's like those things you go to. I get really heavily into the Police, and you know, so then I had to find all of those records, and you know.
And do you think that, I mean, you know, I totally agree. I saw, speaking of the Beach Boys, I saw them at UCLA at Royce Hall, and I was in tears, and it took me back to the first show I went to when I was a kid. And, you know, like it was just instant time travel, like geography travel, time travel to this moment. And I think, you know, now when we don't have, by the way, it's also nice to be able to have an interview. And since we're wrapping it up, I hope some of you at home may also be joining us for the cocktail.
It's a happy-hour time slot, so I decided to take advantage of my Yule log and my.
It's the happy hour time slot, and we've got a little music coming up at 6, and Ann doesn't have to play it. We've got James Andrews, who's going to take us home tonight. But what do you think the impact is on not having live music right now and people not being able to go to concerts? What's the impact of that on radio?
Well, it's making us. I mean, here's the thing. A week before the COVID thing happened, we were planning our summer night series of live concert DJ sessions. You know, Chinatown, Headquarters, the Hammer Museum. We had all of these like big bands play. We were going to do something in Long Beach. We had all these ideas, and we're starting to get into that. And literally, it changed on a dime. So, I mean, I remember I had a conference call with all the DJs, and we were talking about their radio shows and how we were going to do this and that and the other. And literally 5 hours later, I had to email them all and say, we're pulling everybody off the air because everybody has to get out of the building now. And that was a 5-hour swing of we're doing these 100 things to we have to reinvent the wheel. And so we are literally rewriting what we're doing. So we can have live concerts right now. So what can we do? And I mean, we're doing a ton of stuff. I mean, but it's just the whole playbook. We threw the whole playbook out, right? Completely. And I mean, I can tell you some of the things we're doing, but
I would love, you know, I'd be curious if you can say, you know, what was the thing that's not happening? Is there something that's not happening that you're just like, that you can talk about, that you're like, oh.
I mean, I don't think, well, you know, we were going to do, and we're going to reformat it in a completely different way, but KCRW as a whole, the entire station, we were going to do a thing at the end of April, a week-long project, and it was to kick off with the pie contest at UCLA, and it was called Amplified, and we're still going to do Amplified, but it's going to be a very different series now. But Amplified was a week of community building events where we were going to have club nights where local bands would play and we would all go support those local bands. We were going to have local bands play live in the studio. We were going to have, you know, get to know your neighbors, have your neighbors over, and here are some topics to discuss. I mean, just, we can't have our neighbors over right now. I mean, every single thing we had to cancel the pie contest. Every single thing we had planned, which was all about gathering community together and a big bear hug. We were like, wait a minute, we can't do this. We can't do this. So that actually went away, and so we're reimagining it in a different way for the fall.
I think, you know, that's part of what we've heard today on a lot of the different panels is that reimagining part. You know, it's happening now, and the idea, you know, when Rachel and I will take a walk around Culver City, you know, the other day we saw an entire block that everyone was in front of their house in beach chairs with a cocktail, and there was some music playing, and it was a block party. It's just, you know, and there was like 12 people outside from different families,
yeah,
listening to music and being together despite the circumstances. And I think one of the fascinating parts right now is the playing field is totally leveled, and it's forcing creativity in ways that we haven't seen in a long time, because people are like, oh, I can do this too. What can I do with my free time? How can I bring people together how can I collaborate with somebody else? So what are some of the...
But I also think there's a creativity hit that is happening right now. One of the things I'm trying to do, and I have a bunch of ideas, and so those of you who are watching right now, don't hold me to any of this, because we're just working on ideas. But I would like to put together a panel of artists to talk about creativity in this time, because I've talked to some artists who say they've got nothing right now, right? Some people, yes, it's leveling the playing field in a certain way. And then there's some people who are completely, I just think there's a mental health conversation to have among artists. And I think there's a creativity gap where some people, like, I can't wait to hear what music comes out 6 months from now or 8 months from now or tomorrow, because you can go make something right now.
Yeah, Dennis White, who was one of the earlier panelists, he wrote a song, I think it was called We're in This Together, or We're All in This Together, inspired by somebody, by the way, is saying they'd be very excited if you put that panel together.
No, I am trying to. And I have some other ideas like that too.
And, Dennis wrote this song, he was really inspired, and then now it's going to be in a bunch of Fox, I think it's Fox Sports stuff, but basically, like, he had the inspiration and he shared it and reached out and found a willing partner, and they embraced the song, and now they're using it for a whole campaign. So
Dennis wrote it during this time.
Yeah.
He came in late to that conversation. Okay, got it. Yeah. I mean, and also I think there's songs that were written at other, like, the Fiona Apple album came out, and we had this really fun thing at KCRW a couple of weeks ago. It was called This Album Saved My Quarantine, which I mentioned before. And we put together a panel of 10 DJs, and I talked to each of them. And most people had their sort of comfort food albums that saved their quarantine. But one DJ had Fetch the Bolt Cutters by the new Fiona Apple album, which is an interesting album, because all I wanted to do is fetch the bolt cutters, and she certainly did not write that album right now. But it's this thing. Everything takes on a new meaning, and I don't know. I'm not actually helping your point. Your point was he wrote this song now, but I think there are also other songs that have been written before that now we're hearing in a completely different way.
Yeah, I wasn't. The discussion. I'm not trying to win anything. Not here, not in this conversation. But I think it's you're right. When everything is constrained, you're going to listen to lyrics that are about freedom. You're going to listen to lyrics about health. You're going to listen to lyrics that reflect the feelings we have now, and we're experiencing it in a different way. You're going to listen to the song a different way.
Completely. And that's when you would go back to what you were asking about, how we're putting shows together now. And I've been talking to the other DJs who are doing it too. And by the way, for those of you who are fans of a bunch of our DJs, just this week we figured out a way that all of the DJs, even though they're not on the air, we're all contributing shows. And if you go to the website, you can check your favorite DJs.
You brought up kind of the mental health issues around creativity, and also, like we kind of started the conversation, there's so much loss right now, and trying to survive, trying to manage through the personal side of this and the professional side of this. If you're in a position to try to help other people, and the impact that you may have as you reach out to others and try to help lift them up. What's the response with the food bank? It seems like that was a great partnership to be able to do to do two great things at once: support KCRW and support the food bank at the same time. Can you share anything about how that partnership?
Well, the partnership's been going on for a while, but the intel or the numbers that have come in from the fund drive are that more people than have ever, like quadruple the number of people who've donated to KCRW during this particular fund drive, have taken that as their thank you gift. And I think it speaks to how helpless we all feel. And because I want to do something, if I can pick fruit and take it to the food pantry, or if I can, all we do is take out from every local restaurant we can in our neighborhood, because we want them all to keep going. And I think that people choosing that food bank partnership is just blown up in a way we've never seen it blow up before.
And what do you feel like? I totally agree. I think a lot of people are engaging in the same acts, right? If you're in a position to support your favorite restaurant down the street,
Yeah.
you and I collaborated on a project, and it's if you can figure out a way to try to double the good, right? Um, and it's there. It's just a matter of taking some thought and going, okay, I want to do this, but what else can I do at the same time? Or a lot of what we've talked about today is what are the partnerships that I can form right now where I can double the good, where it's not just one group doing all the work, but it's like, okay, it's naturally, if we put these two things together, it'll be much more impactful.
Yeah. No, I know. And it's weird because, I I don't know how you guys who are watching this feel about it, but um, there are a lot of ways that we all are surviving through this, and I have this sort of existential crisis often in this time, thinking, all I'm doing is playing a couple of records on the radio. Like I should be out on the front lines stitching masks or something that's actually doing something. And then I hear back from people who need music and need community and need to feel like somebody's talking to them. And I think that we all want to contribute in some way. And if doing that a little bit helps, awesome. But I don't know. I sometimes worry about that, or wonder about that. Just seems so.
But that's, I think part of you're one of the musical voices, and certainly one of the most important musical voices in the city, and to be able to create and guide that shared experience of what the city is listening to, and beyond the boundaries of Los Angeles as well. I think about every time I hear the Michael Kiwanuka, anything from Michael Kiwanuka, I think back to last summer at the Bowl, and Michael Kiwanuka was supposed to play before Gary Clark Jr.
Yeah.
And he got sick and couldn't play. And, but now as I hear you playing it, it's become one of those he's become one of those artists where I'm like, yeah, this is like very much like a sound of the moment. And to know that people across the city are sharing that moment and listening, I think there is a real value in that, and picking the right songs for those moments is a serious responsibility.
I agree with you. There is something about listening to music together, and it goes back to that sort of radio. It's like, you think of radio broadcasting sounds, old timey and on a certain level in 2020, but I feel like it's gone back to, let's all listen to, like I opened the show today with Gil Scott-Heron, the song Lovely Day. It's like, it's going to be a lovely day, and it's, it's springtime, and, it to everybody, I don't know, it makes me feel better to sit down and listen to a record with people. It's almost like what we should do on this thing, if we do it again, is we should all just like play, every person in the square should just like be playing a different record that we all
rotate through with each DJ, and one person, and everybody picks one song. And yeah, I think it's the song selection, I think it's like what you're feeling when you wake up and you look in the morning and look out, and it's like you're facing the day, and we're all facing that same day.
Right.
I think in terms of mental health, I mean, it's not talking to your therapist, but at the same time, like for me anyway, when I get up and listen to you on KCRW, I'm checking in. I want to hear what the temperature of the city is musically, and that's really what
it's the same thing for me. Garth is on the air right now in the evening, and I had to write something 2 nights ago, and I sat down and I turned him on KCRW, Garth Trinidad, and listened to him and started writing this thing. It was this kind of intense thing I had to write, and I found myself sobbing and listening, and then Shazamming, like, what is it, and it made me feel better. I don't know. I'm sort of rambling. There's something about the time right now that to me feels more personal than in all the years I've done radio and all the places I've done it from, and all, the fact that we've forced ourselves to figure out how to broadcast from here in a safe way we would never have done that before. It just, everything is more loaded and personal. I just keep saying that word, personal. But, we can't go, like right now, I'd be going to like a million Dodger games, right? Think of all those things that make you feel good right now. I'd be going to see music. We'd be getting ready to go to the Hollywood Bowl together this summer. And,
Yeah, let's talk about that for a minute, because I'm going to need some therapy around the fact that we're not going to the bowl.
You and a ton of other people I've talked to, by the way. You know what? I just got a calendar reminder popped up on my screen to say that the Chicago Cubs at the Los Angeles Dodgers is starting in 15 minutes, because I have their schedule, it hasn't, it's still going. So they would have been playing the Cubs tonight in 15 minutes.
What do you, are you at KCRW? Are you guys thinking about what could take the place of these evenings at the bowl? I mean, we've got the KCRW Presents series that's such a integral part.
We've actually got something we're working on, and I hope that I'm not speaking too soon because it's not completely sorted out. But in collaboration with the LA Phil and the Hollywood Bowl, we're going to try to resurface some classic concerts around a shared listening and viewing experience online. And we're actually literally working on that right now. And at KCRW, we're going to be resurfacing. I mean, I referenced some of the things we're doing, but I was on a call about it, a Zoom call about it this afternoon. We're resurfacing some classic sessions from Morning Becomes Eclectic over the years that we have on video that we've never shared. We had the first time Adele was ever on the radio was at KCRW. And that was kind of this amazing moment. And so we're going to start resurfacing a bunch of that stuff so that we can all, I feel like I feel like before everything was more disposable. It's like, oh, session, boop, boom, it's gone. Now on to the next, on to the next. And now I feel like we're having to sit in it and stew in it and think about it. Think about what's important. Think about things that are meaningful that maybe we didn't slow down enough to pay attention to before. And now we're trying to do that with a bunch of stuff.
Can't wait to hear that. And I think, you and I talked about a little bit in one of our conversations before this. How are you going about this process? You've talked about kind of going through the archives and pulling some stuff. And there are so many people that are jumping into various types of music live streaming. There's DJ sets, some successful, some not, or some well-attended and some more well-attended. But
here's my thing with that. I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you, but here's my thing with that. And everybody at KCRW hears me say this over and over again, which is I don't really feel like watching dudes with guitars in their bedrooms right now, like just lo-fi, I don't know. It's just, okay. I mean, I want to support what artists are doing, but I want to do it in a different way. I think there's a better way to showcase these artists than putting up a bunch of videos like that. And so what we're trying to do is go to artists. In fact, we just started it today. We're going to artists and asking them to create a few sets of music for us that don't have to be video. It doesn't all have to be video, right? So, create a 3-song set for us. We were going to invite you to KCRW for Morning Becomes Eclectic anyway. Do something different and special, sort of VH1 storyteller style, and let us share that. I don't think everything has to be, I feel like there's this one template going around of, I'm going to play my guitar on IGTV, and that's it. And I just want to, I just think there are more effective ways they can help the artists more to showcase their music, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think there's room for all of these different, we'll call them lo-fi productions, right? Where it's just really raw and connected, and hopefully we're, hitting some of those buttons with the conference today, like this. We're learning on a production side, our budget was $0, and we just wanted to have the conversation with a lot of people who we thought have interesting things to say right now. But it's this question about the pursuit of quality, and there are different ways of achieving that, right? There's the rawness of Post Malone playing Nirvana songs, which clearly resonated with a lot of people and helped raise a lot of money for some charitable organizations. And then there's this question, and we had a panel about people from the festival space earlier talking about, and Raymond Roker, who did the Coachella documentary, and Steve Lieberman, who does builds, all the lighting and visuals around a lot of the big festival stages. How do you achieve that?
I don't think you can, and I don't think we need to right now. And by the way, I didn't mean to sound like I was putting down people playing their guitars on Instagram Live. I want people to express themselves any way they want to. What I guess the point I was trying to make is that what I'm hoping to share with KCRW's audience is an experience that oh gosh, anything I say right now is going to come out bad. I don't know. I just, it doesn't all have to be the same thing, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I think there are different ways to share music, and I feel like I want us to figure out all those different ways to do it. And I don't think it has to be a big production right now. It just doesn't. So maybe this is the summer that we have conferences with artists about mental health issues around creativity. It doesn't have to be that. I think we just all have to face the fact that it's not going to be that right now.
Well, and I think they're serving different purposes, right? I mean, some artists are playing to play because that's what they have to do.
Exactly.
That's the expression. Like, they don't know what else to do,
so
and that's what they do.
I'm all for that. I'm just talking about the things we're choosing to put on the air right now that we think will be meaningful.
Right, and that's it's serving a different purpose, right? Because it's not just I'm expressing myself for me. You are approaching it from a different lens of going, how does this serve KCRW, and is it the right message for our audience?
Yeah.
There's a different filter, right?
Right, a completely different filter. And I do think that talking to those guys, Raymond and all of those guys, I don't know. Look, none of us have the answers. I just think the thing I'm coming to grips with, because we were talking about our summer night series and all of our live concerts, and I'm just trying to get my head wrapped around the fact that there's a very, very good chance that we're not going to go see live music in 2020. I just think there's a good chance it's not going to happen. And even if things are opened up when we can, I think a lot of people aren't going to want to. And so what can we do that feels right? What can we do that touches that, that satisfies that, within us? What is it? I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's what all the experimenting right now, right? I mean, it's just everybody's trying different things to see what connects, and we're all learning at the same time. I think that's happening. It happens ordinarily, but in the face of COVID and the restrictions, and especially in LA where we don't have, now we don't have to commute, right? Like, you got 2 hours of your life back.
That's insane, by the way.
And so we all have the space to try to figure out what is it that's going to replace those cherished, shared experiences in person.
I just wish that I could create some, I wish I could create some, maybe there's some platform, Simon, that we create that really showcases those people who want to share their music. Can we create some platform where you sign up for a half an hour and it's like mic night, but it's a significant way to share your music with a bunch of people?
I think that's happening. I mean, Erykah Badu has been doing live streams, and she's...
But not just artist by artist. I'm talking about, is there somebody overarching in your conversations today that is saying, okay, we're going to create this venue? I don't mean the art. Yeah, all the artists are doing those things. But I don't know.
I love that you flipped the conversation to me answering questions. Nice. It took a little while, but you got there.
But think about it, Simon, because if there was a platform where you could then easily and in a high quality way or a medium quality way showcase people who won't get to be heard otherwise, except from their, just a few followers on a social media platform, like one of those big companies, AEG or somebody, create something, and then we can slot people into it, and then we can actually go out and hear them.
Aren't we doing that with KCRW?
Yes, we are. But we don't have the resources to do as much of it. I'll curate it. We'll curate it. but we just need we need a bigger megaphone. We
I
don't
think the platforms are being built. I mean, some of the people, the platform we're on right now, it's Zoom. The panel, the way that everyone accesses Zoom, Live Lesson Masters, is a company that was launched in March by Alicia Carlin, who's a talent buyer at AEG. So I think there's a lot of creativity around the platform side too. And, one of the things about the platform side, is if you do it right, there's a hell of a lot of money in winning that, right? So there's a huge incentive for people to be creative in that space. I see we're getting a lot of comments. There's virtual mic night combined with virtual cocktails.
These are probably things I don't know about. So I'm happy to be. Can you keep the comments so I can read them and learn?
I will try. James, our producer, I'm going to turn to him and say, let's figure that out.
But the people in the comments, because I can't see them from where I am, are saying things like, "Oh, there already are these 65."
One of the examples, and it's not 24/7, that's been I think a standout was the Beatport's Reconnect series. Yes. They had, I think it was 32 hours of live DJs from around the world. Yeah. And they raised like $800,000 in a day. And they've done a second one, and now they're breaking into genres. So I do think that it's happening. It'll be interesting to see what rises to the top and what are the ones that make sense and people feel comfortable with. I think it'll be a lot like physical venues, right? I mean, do you want to play at the old 930 club, since that seems to be resonating with people? Do you want to play at the new 930 club, which is a much nicer, cleaner environment with a better sound system, but not quite the same like dirty dive bar spirit of the old 930? Or do you want to be at the Hollywood Bowl or Travis Scott, and playing a virtual show? I think the development of virtual venues is getting money poured onto the research and development faster than anything. One of the entrepreneurs I spoke with earlier, his company Verve, they just entered into a huge partnership with Facebook, and their entire focus, or their initial focus, is music and VR, and basically handing musicians and creatives like, okay, well, do you want to it's not just make your album or make a music video, like what's the world that you want people to experience while you're in the album? And I think that's going to be amazing. It's going to be as diverse as any other kind of architecture.
Yeah, I think so too. And it's funny because a place like KCRW, because we're a public radio station funded by member donations, we don't have the resources to develop those platforms, but I hope that everybody listening here does develop those platforms so that we can use them, because I would love to host a KCRW Summer Nights virtual concert, if we can't do it in person, on some, great sound system. I would love to, curate some amazing show. We had all these incredible artists lined up to come in for Morning Becomes Eclectic, and, we've had to cancel everything. And I look forward to that. I still miss the people. We can do VR all day long, and I want to have that experience. But I just miss, like Simon, we should be sitting together, not looking at each other on TV.
I totally agree. And I think we're going to wrap it up, and I'm going to ask you one more question. Okay. First, I'm just going to invite everybody to come and join the DJ session that's starting, I think, in 2 minutes or something like that. James Andrews is going to be playing for about an hour, and if you want to chat and talk and listen to some good music, James was on one of the panels earlier. I'm sure he'd love to see and hear people talking there. If you're joining us late, I also want to remind you the conference was free, and if you are in a position to do so, we did select a couple of organizations, and they're on the website. If you're in a position to make a donation, please do. They're great orgs. They could use your help. KCRW is, of course, another great org that could use your help. Pavlov is also another one. There's a lot to be done, and whether it's offering service or money, we can all make a difference. So, Anne, in closing, what would be the record that you would put on right now to wrap us all up?
What would be the record I would put on right now to wrap us all up? Can it be a whole album or
It could be a whole album, James. Well, it's just hypothetical, so it's not going to conflict with James. So what would you play?
Okay, here. I don't know why I'm choosing this.
Perfect.
Can we go with that?
We can totally go with that.
I pulled a few others for you as well, but yeah, I'm gonna go with that for now.
Impeccable choice. I don't think anybody can argue with that. And the last note I just want to say is for the people who are really into the Discord records conversation, that entire catalog is available for free on Bandcamp now. So if for some reason you don't know Minor Threat or Rites of Spring or a million other awesome bands,
it's a good deep dive into that. It's really awesome.
It's a fantastic label, and it was built in an amazing time, full of its own challenges. So make sure to check that out after you listen to David Bowie. Thank you all for joining us today. We'd love to hear feedback from you on the Facebook event page. You can, hit us up on Instagram or whatever. We may do another one. We'll see how it goes. But Anne, most of all, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, and I'm really excited because we are going to roll out some kind of cool virtual things in the next weeks and months, and for music fans, and it's just something we've been really working hard on. So I hope to share those with you soon.
Great, we're getting a lot of thank yous. Love this from the people out there, and. Just want to say thank you to everyone who helped put this on. As is traditional, James, thank you for keeping us on track. And thank you all for being here. I think we're done, and let's go check out some music in the other room.